Okay, it is 10:46 Central Time. The Detroit Lions just wrapped up the NFC number one seed. It's the Sunday Night Talk. It's another solo edition. I'm going to break it all down because we have playoffs to discuss now. We have draft orders to discuss now. The season is officially settled and now on to the playoffs, but we'll get to all that. Before we get to that, I want to remind you this show is brought to you by the Running a Bat Network, where all my content is up on the YouTube channel, my stand-up comedy clips, my YouTube shorts, my interview series, not to mention this very show, the Sunday Night Talk, is up there as well. We've done 18 weeks of these, and we have playoffs coming up right now too. Oh my God, this season is hot. But not for my Raiders, because their season mercifully ended today. So we're going to talk about it all. It's right here on the show. Much to discuss. Let's start. Okay, recording this right after the Detroit Lions beat into submission the Minnesota Vikings. Wow. For some reason, it took me a while to realize this game was bad. I guess it really didn't really show that it was bad until the fourth quarter started. But Minnesota was not Minnesota. Not the Minnesota we know. The offense was struggling. They did not get 2 fourth downs inside the 4, which I think really hurt their confidence moving forward. It was a wake-up call for Minnesota and also a cautious win for Detroit too. Cautious win for Detroit, and I say that because did Detroit peak tonight? What do I mean by that? What I mean is everything's clicking, everybody's friends, everybody's catching balls, everybody's setting records. Is this the top of the mountain? You still have multiple playoff games to go. You have a bye week to get healthy. You have games. You have hot teams to contend with. You've got the pressure of a home playoff game. This is where the coaching really comes in. It's like, can this team come down from the mountain and then get back up for whatever opponent they play? Second question, do the Vikings have a problem going into LA now? We saw Sam Darnold take a lot of hits. He was limping at one point. He couldn't seem to stand in the pocket for too long before he was out of options and he was running out of there. He doesn't have the speed to get out of the pocket and really be a running threat, and then no one was open. He missed Justin Jefferson twice to where that really could have flipped the game. A defensive play there by the defensive end, I think it was Van Winkle, almost took a golf screen pass for a pick six, which would have really given some momentum to the Vikings. Would that have been enough? I don't know. But the Vikings were a big question mark. Do they have a problem going into the LA Rams? That's who they're playing. It's another question of coaching. Can they put this behind them and move on? The big turning point for me in this game was the Vikings couldn't get in the end zone. 2 fourth and goals. They couldn't get inside the 5. And if they had kicked those field goals, would that have extended the game? Would that have at least given them some hope or momentum? Because once they were down 24-9, it's like there was no way they were getting back into it. There was no way. Okay, so what was at stake for this game? It's the Sunday night game. It's the last game of the regular season, and we get Vikings versus Detroit Lions, 2 14-2 teams for the division. For the division. I know they flex this game to have it on Sunday night, but how often do we get a Sunday night capper of this importance? And there were some important games during the day as well, but this one had all the weight on it. Winner gets the first seed, loser gets the 5th seed, and has to go on the road for a playoff game. What a swing. So here are my notes from this game. Like I said, the loser has to go to LA, play the Rams, which was determined earlier in the day. The Jeff Daniels intro, NBC upped their game a little bit. with a celebrity who has some sort of tie-in to one of the teams doing this fireside intro, which I can't say I really remember what he said in the intro, but it was done well. Jeff Daniels, who has more range than Jeff Daniels? The guy was in Speed. The guy was in Dumb and Dumber. The guy was in The Martian. Range on that guy. Okay, Minnesota goes for it on 4th and goal, doesn't get it. This keeps them down 7-0 to Detroit. Then Minnesota misses Jefferson twice in the end zone. They kick a field goal, so they get on the board there. So a lot of going for it by both teams on 4th downs just in the first half alone, which I don't know, still makes me a little nervous when you're so eager to go for it on 4th down and you're not getting any points. You still have 0 on the board. I think you can go for it on 4th down after you at least get some points. It's just a psychological thing. I know the numbers, the analytics, the tendencies show one thing, but I think just psychologically, you have to get points first. Because if you go for it on 4th down a couple of times, you still have 0 points, so you don't get it. It knocks you down a peg. And somewhere around that 4th quarter, the eyes, the faces, the demeanor looked really different on that Vikings sideline. Okay, so it's halftime. Do you know what the halftime score is? I had to go back and look at this. It's 10-6. 10-6. So as bad as Minnesota was offensively, they're playing with Detroit defensively. It's 10-6, which could have been 10-9 if they had kicked a field goal, maybe more. Maybe if they've gotten any of those touchdowns, they could have been leading this game at the half. For some reason, I think those 4th downs hurt them. And it didn't really show itself till later in the game. All right. Minnesota in the second half stopped inside the 5 again. They go for it on 4th and goal. They don't get it. Critical part of the game. Minnesota's forced to punt when they're down 24-9. There's 10 minutes left in the 4th. I thought this was the critical crux of the game because it could go either way here. Either Minnesota mounts a comeback or Detroit just pours it on. They go to a shot of Darnold on the sideline after a couple of sacks, after a couple of 4th down turnovers, and the guy just looked shell-shocked, like the game got away from him. And he didn't have any answers. The offense did not have any answers. We talked so much about the concern. Can Detroit cover Justin Jefferson? He needs to be double-teamed. Does that open up another player? Well, guess what? Detroit did single cover Jefferson, and they pulled it off. So that whole theory of like, what are they going to do? Because we know they're going to double cover. Can they go here like, screw it. They had enough defenders for everybody because single coverage was enough for Justin Jefferson. Okay, second part of my, I guess you would say more of my Minnesota critique. There was a point in the game. The game is basically out of hand, or it's about to be. Detroit has the ball. It's 4th and 2. The offense stays out on the field, and they're just going to hard count. This is one of the things that kind of drives me crazy is you know they're going to hard count it. It's 4th and 2 because a 5-yard penalty would give them the first down. You know what they're going to do. It's going to be a long count. Goff is going to bark and yell and kick his leg. There's going to be motion. You know what's going to happen. Not only does Minnesota jump off sides, they showed in the replay, 3 Minnesota defenders jump off sides. Unbelievable. Somewhere after that, Sam Darnold starts limping. So the questions moving forward in this game is, can Detroit come down from this monumentous win? It's the second year in a row they win the division and regroup and be ready for whatever opponent they have after their bye week. Second question, can Minnesota put this loss behind them and play the football they did all year that led to 14-2? 14-2. This team looked like they were 9-7 today. That's the questions moving forward. I guess we're going to find out. So now that we have those games, and we're going to talk about the games, of course, but we have a playoff picture now. Not only do I have a playoff picture, we have a playoff schedule as well. So I'm going to talk about the playoff schedule. Let's go through it. I'm going to jump into the games as we do this. Saturday, AFC, we have the LA Chargers go into Houston. Chargers today beat my hapless Raiders. I will discuss the Raiders in a moment. Chargers go in and beat the hapless Raiders. They actually have the game that you would want out of a Week 18 when you want to have a convincing win and you want to go into the playoffs with some momentum. The Chargers have it. They did it. They're throwing the ball well. They're defending well. They're running the ball well. Herbert is actually a little spicy out there. There's a part where he's clapping his hands at the center to snap the ball, and he doesn't in time. They get the delay of game, and Herbert yells at him, "What are you waiting for?" I like this feisty Justin Herbert. Wow. So the Chargers, this might be the best the Chargers have ever looked, at least in the last 5 years. They got Harbaugh, which is a lot of confidence. They have a young team, which looks like they're ready to make a run. And they go into Houston. Houston, who looked okay today. I got to admit, that was one of the games I didn't watch too much of. However, they did get the win. CJ Stroud looks good. And they're going to be at home. So I hate to say this because I don't know if this makes me a good or bad fan, but I'm going to be sad for whatever team loses this game. I really am. I like both these teams, and I want both of them to make a run in the playoffs. So if you were to ask me, would I be surprised if the Chargers won this game? No, I would not. Am I going to be surprised if Houston won this game? No, I'm not. So I don't know what the point of me watching this game is if I'm not going to be surprised by anything. It's very strange. Houston won today. They beat Tennessee, which was not high in my list of a game I wanted to watch. The only thing interesting about this game was that Tennessee wore these old Houston Oilers uniforms, which is great, but not from your team that has been out of the playoff for 3.5 weeks. It's almost like a novelty or like an insult to it all. So, rough game to watch, but Tennessee's season ends. By the way, I have a quick list of teams that look bad. I always do who look good, who look bad during the day. So let me do a quick who look good this week. I went Baltimore, looked good on Saturday, and the Detroit defense looked good. Who looked bad? I'm putting all the teams that had a meaningless game today. And now I don't mean just teams that are out of the playoffs, but like teams that the season came to just a merciful end today. And those teams are the New York Giants, the Jacksonville Jaguars, Tennessee, and Cleveland. I feel like all four of those teams couldn't wait for this season to be over. Now, let's talk Raiders while I'm on this subject here, because I didn't put them on this list, but Antonio Pierce had this look on his face today where he was like, how many more minutes left in this game? How much more time till the season's over? He had that glazed eye look where he was kind of leaning on his knees, but his eyes were all wide, where he's almost like he's trying to keep himself awake. Like if he was in some like long college class or like he was in church, it was like, what are 14:47? Okay, all right. All right, got the offense. All right. So here's my Raiders thoughts. Tough season, but there was some beauty in this season, I have to admit. So what are we thinking into the offseason? Need a quarterback, and we need to figure out the coach. It was Antonio Pierce's first full season as a head coach. Ever. So are we really willing to bag on the guy after one season? We had 4 different quarterbacks start for the Raiders this year, I think, by my recollection. We had an absolute diamond in the rough of a draft pick in Brock Bowers that was really, really good. And people were mad, myself included, about that draft pick when it occurred. And the guy sets this rookie record as a receiver, not just as a tight end, as a receiver. And the Raiders got him. My fear is consistency, of course, with all these rookies. I don't need to bring up my Hunter Renfrow almost bought his jersey thoughts when he was the man for 2 seasons and has essentially fallen off the NFL map. So those are my questions. Now we get into the draft of the Raiders, and we're picking 6, I believe. And we have questions leading it, questions to be answered before that draft. Let's talk draft order since I got it up here. Okay. Draft order. Who's picking first? Tennessee is picking first, and that leaves a lot of questions, whether they go the Heisman winner, whether they go offense, whether they go defense. It's a lot of questions. Picking second, Cleveland. We have no idea what's going on. The New York Giants. A lot of questions. New England is picking fourth. They fired their coach today. I think right after the game. I don't know if he even gave his post-game speech. I don't know what happened. Which makes me think somebody agreed to the job and they're like, let's do it. Let's do the deal. So are we going to hear an announcement that they hired Mike Vrabel as early as tomorrow? That's my guess. Why would you fire someone so quickly after their last game if you didn't already have someone in the wings waiting? And if you think about this firing, Gerard Mayo, this is his first year. He was groomed as the Belichick successor for years. And it's one and done. The guy didn't have a lot to work with anyway. I don't know if that was a fair shot or not. Only reason I can think is they have someone ready, like Mike Vrabel. Picking fifth, Jacksonville Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence injury is a question mark. Who do they need? Are they going to keep that coach as well? Picking sixth, the Las Vegas Raiders. And we've said it, it's quarterback. We need a quarterback. Aiden O'Connell has a great arm, but that's about it right now. Can the coaching elevate him? And there were little flashes, but I don't think it was something. I think you shop him. I think he's a starting quarterback. I think he will get better. But if we've got this high pick in the draft, I think we need to look quarterback. Picking seventh, the New York Jets. We don't know what's going on with their future. We're going to talk about their game and Aaron Rodgers. Picking eighth, Carolina. Carolina gets the comeback team of the year within the year. I think every single one of their games in the second half of the season was great, or at least fun to watch. Picking ninth, New Orleans. Total 180. I think they started so well, and they went backwards. I don't know what happened. And then picking 10th, Chicago. They need to find a coach, and they need something. Maybe offensive line, because Caleb Williams has been sacked a million times this year, and he's a good runner, so it could have been even more. That's the draft order. Back to playoffs. Sticking in the AFC, Pittsburgh is going to Baltimore. So we get one of these rare playoff games where they played in week 18 and then they play each other again in the first round of the playoffs. This usually favors the team that lost in the first game. I really don't trust Pittsburgh. I really don't. I wrote in my notes, they start slow and they usually finish well. And they didn't finish well. Sorry, they didn't play Baltimore in week 18. They played Cincinnati, but they do not finish well. They don't. That last drive they had against Cincinnati where they could have secured the win, Russell Wilson scrambles, stays in bounds, doesn't spike the ball. They had a timeout. They ran another 15 seconds. They lost plays out of that. I am hesitant to blame players about this because they're in the moment, they're breathing hard, their heart rates are up, they got a lot of things going. So I blame coaching. Flip it, the Bears had a shot of redeeming themselves for a last-second drive today, and they did it. Pittsburgh, they really shot themselves in the foot with those last 4 play calls in it. And then Baltimore. Baltimore looks strong. I think Lamar secured the MVP as well. AFC playoff picture. Next game is Denver at Buffalo. I think Denver had their moment today. I don't think they can beat Buffalo. I really don't. Denver had to win today. They played essentially the second team everything in the Kansas City Chiefs. They had nothing to play for. Plus, it was Carson Wentz. And they won like 38-0. I thought it was a fun day for Denver. There's no way. Can anybody talk me into the Denver Broncos? Can anybody? I can't. Am I going to change my mind? I don't think so. All right. That throws us over to the NFC side of things. Detroit has the number 1 seed. Minnesota, with today's loss, goes into the LA Rams. LA Rams today, interesting game, because they didn't start any of their starters. They had Jimmy G go in there. Stafford's on the side in sweatpants, just resting. Took the week off. Essentially, they had a bye week. And they got to play Seattle. No real ramifications whatsoever. It's good that the backups got in there because, hey, you never know. In these playoff games, there's always someone whose quarterback goes down, and the backup's got to jump in there. We've seen it almost every year. Famously, Chad Henne goes in for Patrick Mahomes 3 years ago, has to make one throw, makes it. Mahomes comes back the next week. Go even back further. The start of the Patriots dynasty, Tom Brady goes down at the end of the second quarter in the AFC Championship game. Drew Bledsoe has to come in and finish that game. Go back even further. A Dallas Cowboy, Bernie Kosar, comes in for Troy Aikman in one of the games, has to make one throw, and has to extend that playoff run. So the backups, the Jimmy G's, the Carson Wentz's, the Justin Fields, somebody's going to have to come in. Watch which quarterback is going down. So the Rams, I don't even know if they won or not, to be honest. This was a game I had on the side and never really put the sound on. Yeah, Seattle won. The Rams were at home, so they didn't have to fly anywhere. They stay home. Stafford's got a week off. Perfect. The Rams and Tampa Bay are my sneaky, I wouldn't be surprised if teams. Speaking of Tampa Bay, Washington goes to Tampa Bay on Sunday for their playoff game. Let's start with Washington Cowboys here. This is a game I watched. Why? I'm not sure why, but I was intrigued by this game. So we got Washington goes into Dallas. Dallas I didn't put on my merciful season has got to end list, but maybe I should have, because I have a lot of Cowboys fans in my life, and a couple of them are mad. They're mad fans this year. They're mad at Micah Parsons. They're mad at Jerry Jones. They're mad at Mike McCarthy. They're happy Dak is out. I don't know. I don't know what's going on with Dallas, but that might be a teardown as well. I don't know what their draft order is, but Washington essentially sleepwalks through that first half of the game. They fumbled the punt. They dropped a touchdown pass. And they keep showing Jerry Jones' press box. And I got to thinking, how many cronies do you think Jerry Jones has around him at all times? Because I've seen the same three guys around him in these press boxes for a couple of years now. It's pretty funny. And I just wonder what the day-to-day is for Jerry Jones. I think he fires McCarthy. I really do. I think this was a nail in the coffin. I think McCarthy knows it. That's my thought on that. Okay, that's Washington. Got the fun win they needed. Not to mention they took out Jaden Daniels. Get him rest. Mariota goes in, another backup who got some reps, who has playoff experience, and gets to run this little mini 2-minute drill, pretend like it's the Super Bowl, get some reps in, and he pulled it off. Good job, Mariota. And I got to be honest, I didn't even know he was on the Washington team. Jeez, what an insult. Washington beats the Dallas Cowboys in the last game of the season. I don't know what's going on there. Trey Lance got some good reps. They showed his parents. That's nice. But Dallas might be the, sometimes you put a question mark in your text. Dallas might be the 3 question mark text if you were to put something on it. I don't really know what to say about Dallas season in general. I just know at some point I did ask the question, is this game really going to go into overtime? Please don't go into overtime. There's nothing worse than a game that has no meaning and it goes into overtime. And we had that game today in Indianapolis, Jacksonville. I tried to watch none of this game. Tried. But then I had to peek at it and see what happened. And I'll be honest, I don't know who won. Indianapolis won 26-23. And I got to thinking, a game like this, No playoff implications on the line at all. What's the cheapest a stadium can legally sell beer? How do you get fans to this game? NFL ticket prices are already expensive. How are you going to get people to come to this game? I remember from when I was a kid, minor league baseball stadiums would have nickel beer night. And then I think that turned into dollar beer night. And I'm sure it's like $5 beer night now. But it was like a legal rule. You had to sell beer at this price and you had to cut it off at this time. I would like to know what the beer prices were at this game for the Colts. Oh boy. All right, continuing on. Tampa Bay beats New Orleans today. A game they had to have. This was a game I actually watched the most of today. Baker Mayfield has got to be the most fun QB to watch. And this is why I like him. He's fun. He's tapping people up. He's encouraging people. He's running. He's the exact opposite of Aaron Rodgers. He's having fun out there. Aaron Rodgers is mad all the time. Actually wasn't mad today, but on a whole. So we got New Orleans, Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay does sort of put this game away. And here's what becomes the interesting part of the end of this game is Mike Evans has a chance to have a 1,000-yard receiving season for the 11th straight year. I didn't really know this stat was a stat until they showed it. And he gets it. He ties Jerry Rice in this accomplishment. And the teammates go wild. They go wild. It's like they won the game and this extra bonus. It's like they won a little mini Super Bowl. But here's what has to happen for them to even try this, because the game is somewhat in doubt. It's 27-19. New Orleans has the ball. Time is running out. It's 4th down for New Orleans. So Tampa Bay has to get a stop. They have to go back on offense, and they have to run a pass play to Mike Evans. They get the stop on New Orleans. It's 4th and 15. They don't convert. They run the offense out there, and they got to run a pass play, and they got to get 5 yards, and I think Evans gets the 7 yards, and everybody goes nuts. They got it. Good job, Mike Evans. Good job, Tampa Bay. And of all the teams, I'm excluding the number 1 seeds, the team with the most momentum, I'm going to go Tampa Bay. I think Tampa Bay has the most momentum going into these playoffs. Let me check these teams, though. Let me double check. Is that even a correct assessment? Green Bay at Philly is the other playoff game. I'm going to give Baltimore and Tampa Bay have the most momentum going into the playoffs. Both have home games. Both finished on a high note. Green Bay today, they lost to the Bears. Jordan Love got banged up. His backup, Malik Willis, got banged up. By the way, how many backup QBs were in today? And if you're a backup because your team is resting the starter, I'm counting that too. We had, by my count, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have, by my count, 5 backup QBs were in today. So Green Bay loses to Chicago. Not a big deal because they're already in the playoffs. Chicago gets to go out on a high note. They had a rough season. Coach is fired. Caleb Williams got sacked like 1,000,000 times this year. And this is what tripped me out is he got sacked so many times. And he's a good quarterback at getting out of sacks, which makes me think it could have been even higher. But they win the game on the last second field goal, and they actually executed this little 2-minute drive with proper usage of the timeouts, with spiking the ball, with running a pass play that gets tackled inbounds and then running up and clocking it. They did it. So it can be done. So what happened? Back to the Russell Wilson fucking up the last drive. Like, do these quarterbacks know they can spike the ball if it's a first down? It doesn't matter if you waste it down, you're saving. All right, we got into this. Why do I get the feeling this is going to happen again in the playoffs? And the last team, Philadelphia, that everyone spoke about, they're the 2 seed. For some reason, I'm not as high on Philadelphia as other people are. Is it just Philadelphia history in my head that I'm thinking where they always underperform in the playoffs? And then we're going to have to talk about the coach again. Hurts, I don't know how convinced I am with the health of Jalen Hurts. I'm not high on Philly at all. So my favorite teams in this playoffs, excluding number 1 seeds, Tampa Bay and the Rams. I wouldn't be surprised if either of these teams is in the NFC Championship. I really wouldn't. They're at least fun teams to watch. My favorite teams are Tampa Bay and the Rams on the NFC. On the AFC, it's the Chargers. It's just the Chargers. My low teams on the NFC, it's Philadelphia. Don't trust them. On the AFC, my low team, God, it's a split between Pittsburgh and Denver. If you were to say, if I was going to go reverse Survivor League for the playoffs, what teams do you bet will lose? Is it going to be Pittsburgh or Denver? God, I'm going to go Denver. I want to pick Pittsburgh, but I'm going to go Denver. There's no way Denver gets over Buffalo. What's the spread on that game? 7 seed going into a 2 seed. I'm going to say it's 7 points. It's got to be. I'll look it up. Look it up on your internets right now. Tell me if I'm wrong in the comments. Okay, that's the playoff picture. We've got 2 Saturday games, 3 Sunday games, and we got a Monday nighter as well. So prepare yourselves, everyone. It's going to be a wild ride. Traditionally, the first Saturday playoff game is always a weak AFC game, which is Chargers Houston. I'm prepared. I'm prepared for that game to be boring, just so you know. Okay, that's the playoffs, everyone. That leads us to the awards. We do them every week. I do them every week. I got some good ones for you this week because they're fun. We got a little special announcement at the end of this segment as well. Let's start it off today with the most memorable moment of Week 18. I got Saturday night, the final Cincinnati drive. Boy, was that fun. Boy, was Joe Burrow clicking. And can we just take a moment, just a little in memoriam to the season that was the Cincinnati Bengals? What a fun run they had. God, that was the team I wanted to get into the playoffs. Say we flip it and they get Denver's spot and they're going into Buffalo. That game may be prime time. Cincinnati could win that game. I almost want them to just play not for playoffs. That was really great. At the time, we didn't know that Cincinnati was going to be out, but great memorable moment. Then I also got Mike Evans tying the Jerry Rice record. It was so great to see the teammates run on the field, give them the pats on the head. Great job. Great memorable moments today. 2 of them. Call it a tie. I can't pick just one. Cringeworthy moment of Week 18. Here's a fun one. I told you I watched a lot of Tampa Bay, New Orleans. The Tampa Bay kicker at one point misses a field goal. He goes to the bench, and he's doing that thing where players are wearing their helmets just on the back of their head. They're wearing like a helmet yarmulke. And he's sitting there with his hands out after this missed field goal. No one's around him. Eyes shut, and he's doing like the breathing. He's doing the like, when the camera just is like sticking on him, he's doing the like he was doing this yoga pose, or he was like trying to meditate away this miss of a kick that he had. And I thought the camera did a good job. Stick with him. Stick on him. Just go closer up on him. That's one cringeworthy moment. The final Pittsburgh drive was cringeworthy. It was just another messing up of the clock, not spiking the ball, no timeouts. I went over it. Cringeworthy. And my other nominee, I don't know if you watched this before the Detroit Lions Minnesota Vikings game. NBC's doing their pregame for whatever reason. I don't know why Jason Garrett's still in our lives, but he is. But Maria Taylor is doing this like walk and talk before the game with Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson's wearing these like ski goggles, and they're walking, and it's made to look casual, but they're walking with microphones and Clearly a cameraman's following. And it's just the most awkward interview where he says, Maria Taylor's like, what do you have to do tonight to be successful? We got to ask those broad questions. Like, I just got to play my game. And when I'm on, I feel like I can't be guarded. And just nonsense interview. We didn't need it. And it was awkward. It was totally awkward. It was like watching two teenagers go on a date. I'm going to give the winner to that Tampa Bay kicker, though. I love it. Moving on. Most memeable moment. I got a few of them. This was a good one. There was a point in the fourth quarter. Detroit is on offense. Defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn is sitting on the bench with his legs crossed like he's on vacation. Just taking it in. Wow, you can make a meme about that. Legs crossed Aaron Glenn. And then flip it with the close-up of head coach Kevin O'Connell's face, just utterly disappointed, confused. I don't know what you would say. It wasn't confused. It wasn't disappointed. It was just like, damn, I'm glad this isn't a playoff game because we just got fucking killed. That's my meme. One of those two faces or looks. Best Innovation Award. I don't know if I've given this award before, but it should be given. How about Best Innovation, the Microsoft Surface tablet that every single team has like 50 of on the sideline? Remember in the old days, they would have like this little like Xerox printer on the sideline, and you'd see the players looking at this like printout of formations or something. I don't know what they were looking at. And then eventually that got upgraded to a binder, and the players would flip through it and look through the formations in this binder. Now we have a tablet, and the tablet is also great because now the players have something to get mad at. Tom Brady talked about how he used to punch tablets when he would get mad, or they can throw the tablet. And then you have like all the NFL team like lackeys carrying around all these tablets with them. And they've got this like pretty bomb-proof looking case on them too. Pretty awesome. Not only use of tablet of technology, but also way to get some like great advertisement out there. Microsoft Surface tablet. That being said, I don't know a single person who has one. Are these tablets even good? Can you watch Netflix on there? Can you play solitaire? Or can you look at formations? How about an NFL tablet where I can see those formations they're looking at? I have no idea what they're looking at. I just like when they get mad at the tablet. That's my best innovation. Moving on to the next award. Soundtrack Award. All right, late Saturday night, the games ended, and I got on YouTube, and I was YouTubing a lot of like live rock band performances from the late 80s. And today and Saturday as well, we had a lot of playoff teams that were on the bubble. They win, they're in the playoffs. They lose, they're out. They win, they need help. So they're fighting for their playoff lives. So for my Soundtrack Award, in honor of all those teams, I went with Bon Jovi, Living on a Prayer. Now, I know it's a trite song. I know it's overplayed. I know it's fucked out by now. But if you haven't heard it in a while, you're going to listen all the way through at least before you get tired of it. That song was a force. And I was a kid. It was not my era, and I know that song. A lot of teams were living on a prayer today. Hot Take Award. All right. Here's my hot take. I've been working on this all day. I'm thinking about all the teams that have been essentially tanking or no reason to win the last 3 or 4 weeks. So my take might be maybe some sort of system where each team's salary cap is determined by their record. So you got the draft pick, but if you just tank, your salary cap is lowered, meaning you can't spend as much as another team. I don't know if I fully have fleshed this out or not, but I think there should be some incentive to play hard. I still think that. It's like, okay, well, yeah, you're out of the playoffs. You're 3-12, 3-14, but hey, you won that last game. You have a little more to work with. It's a hot take. I think there's got to be something there. All right, the Sunday double feature. So, been doing some thinking. Again, with a lot of teams that struggled through this regular season. I mean, look at this. Look at these playoff teams that started off badly. Pittsburgh, Denver, put the Rams in there. I don't know how Tampa Bay started. Maybe even the Chargers. Teams that I don't know if we would have said Denver and the Chargers, two AFC West teams are going to be in there. I don't know if we would have said Washington would have been in there. Minnesota, we would not have said it was going to be 14-3. We would not. If you said you were, you're lying because they're back. Their number one draft pick QB went down with an injury. People were not high on the Vikings, and look what they did. All these teams got in. All these teams flipped their season and got in. So, thinking about teams that essentially go from ragtag to success, I'm going to go with the Bad News Bears. I haven't seen it in a long, long time. That's my Sunday night double feature. Continuing on. I got an announcer award. This goes out to all the announcers today that had to cover a game that was insignificant. Man, if you had Indy Jacksonville, I mean, you had to have just a little post-it note that says, talk about the draft, talk about team players you can trade for, and then start over again. Talk about the draft, players you start, talk about anything good you saw from the team this year, and then just repeat over and over and over again. That's a tough job to try and make these games interesting in some way. Announcers get the award for that. Best quote. This came from Tom Brady and Kevin Burkhardt. I think it's Burkhardt who's with Tom Brady, calling the New Orleans Tampa Bay game. I forget which Tampa Bay receiver caught a ball or caught a touchdown, and he did this gesture. You know, he did this. And you can, it looks like a gun or a rifle, or it might be a super soaker. Gets a penalty. Gets the unsportsmanlike because he made the gun gesture. And you got Kevin Burkhardt goes, watching the replay, you can't do any gesture resembling a gun. And Tom Brady chimes in, yeah, no guns, no weapons. I don't know if this penalty's doing any good. I mean, by the letter of the law, is this doing anything? Or are we stopping guns from being sold on the black market by penalizing people making this shape? This is right up there with the end violence sticker that the players wear on their helmets. Like, has anybody broken into a liquor store and tried to rob it, and the clerk goes, "Hey, NFL says end violence." And like, "Oh, sorry, I didn't see that game. I didn't watch New Orleans Tampa Bay. I forgot you can't make a gun sign." This is doing nothing. It's right up there with gun-free zones and safe spaces. They're doing nothing. Let them show, like, no, to what degree can you not mimic a gun? Okay, so you can't make what about this? Can you do this? This isn't dangerous or violent at all. I'm waving my hands like I'm doing little guns. Could you try and load a gun? Like, what if I pulled that little top thing back? Would the referee know what that is? What if I just loaded? We should really test this and see. Oh, could you flip the revolver? Now, we know you can't lift the shirt up. We saw that last week. You know you can't lift the shirt up and pretend like you have. This is ridiculous. NFL. Sorry, I spent too much time on that. Next award, Best Play Call / Coaches Award. Stick with me on this one. This is more of a programmer award. Here's my question. Why does the Golden Globes go up against football on a Sunday? I actually tried to flip it and see what the Golden Globes actually look like today. But why go up against football? Why? You've got Friday night. You've got Saturday night. You could even do Monday night. I don't know. The Golden Globes are just this silly award show that really doesn't matter. But if you're trying to get ratings, why go up against football? When you can do it started exactly when the game started. I didn't understand it at all. Get it together, libs. And last award of the week. I'm tying this on with a discussion about their game. Who won the week? How about number one, all the starters that didn't have to play today? I think you won the week. Mahomes, Stafford, even the ones that went out at halftime, like Jaden Daniels. I think Justin Allen played one play and went out. So if you didn't have to play today, you won the week. Other nominee. All right. Don't come at me, or do. I think Aaron Rodgers won the week. Here's why. Long season. The end is in sight. He had his best game today. He really did. Now, Aaron Rodgers' stats are very deceiving because if you look at his stats, they're not bad. However, his record is bad, and all he does is throw 5-yard underneath passes. He didn't stretch the field. He didn't throw into danger. He was throwing balls away a lot. So let's look at what he did today. He was 23 of 36, 274 yards, 4 touchdowns. He had a pick on the very first play of the game. The guy was having fun out there today. And once the game was in hand, they beat the Dolphins 32-20. It just turned into this like graduation receiving line for Aaron Rodgers. Everybody's patting him on the head. Everybody's shaking his hand. It was a lot of good games because we don't know what the future holds for Aaron Rodgers. I'm glad that he went out on a semi-high note. I like Aaron Rodgers. I just wish he played better. I wish he was a better teammate. I wish he was a better leader this year. He was mad a lot. The coach fired thing, I'll never get over. I think he had something to do with that. We won't know. But I watched the documentary and he's talking about when he decided to go to the Jets. He's like, I loved Coach Saleh and I love the OC Nathaniel Hackett. I got to go to the Jets. Well, what happened between then and getting your coach fired? Like, where was the rift? And I just wish his play backed up his odd behavior this year because I like a quarterback who is a rebel, who is outside the box thinking. But I don't like a quarterback who's a bad leader. And I think he was a bad leader this year. I don't know why. Maybe just doesn't have it in him. But next year's very interesting. Does he stay with the Jets? Does he go to another team for 1 year, like a Tom Brady thing? Or does he call it a career? I hope we're not dragging this out into April to find out. My gut tells me that he calls it a career. But what if someone was like injured and they were like, hey, we got a franchise QB Aaron Rodgers, but we're going to give him a year off. Take the wheel of our team. Who would that be? Say Miami is like, we want Tua to recover. We told them there's no pressure to play next year. You want to play quarterback for Miami for 1 year? Now we have to ask ourselves a question as fans. Do we really want another year of Aaron Rodgers? Do we really want this? Does the media want this? The media likes it because I guess they can generate stories. He's become the Barry Bonds of our football era where they're so adversarial with each other. They find easy stories that they can think of to slam him. He says he doesn't care what anybody thinks of him, but he obviously does. I just wish his attitude was different in that regard with the press because I think it's interesting. I think he's good for football, and I don't think there's anybody who throws the football better than him. Just the physical action of throwing the ball. I like watching him throw. I just wish they didn't go 5-12. Jeez, Jets, jeez. Also, if I'm any sort of coach and the GM says, we're thinking of acquired Aaron Rodgers, I'd be like, fuck that. He got his coach fired last year. I'm not in this to bring someone in to get me fired. Screw that. My God. All right, that was the playoffs. That was all the games. That was the awards. Now it's time for the special announcement. It's the playoffs. I've done the Sunday Night Talk for, like 5 years now. So for the playoffs, special treat, we are going to be going live for the playoffs on YouTube after those last Sunday games. We're just going to hit it live. Is it going to be me? Am I going to have a guest on with it? We don't know, but it's going to be live. I'm going to post about it so you can tune in and watch the show live and see what my thoughts are in real time. Let's see if we can generate more of an audience. Maybe we can read some comments that people have if they write in. And maybe, just maybe, we're going to have a phone caller. You know, we introduced the notion of a phone caller last year, and I think we might do it again. Get some perspective on these playoff games. So, you know, no Monday night game. That's it. There's no Monday night game tomorrow. Thank God. If there is, I'm not watching it. Interesting, Fox, too, you know, the season's ending. So all these networks are hyping up their shows for the new year. Fox had a couple of good-looking reality shows that I might want to check out. Special Forces with Cam Newton. I want to see that guy jump out of that helicopter. I'd watch that. I definitely would watch that. You might be hooking me, Fox, with some reality show. I need something to get it through these cold winter months. No football. God, I watch so much football, though. I am always a little excited to put a bow on the season. That being said, a lot of football left. YouTube Live, it's going to happen. We're going to have some fun with that. And who knows who's going to join. Week 18 in the NFL, I talked about how I'm happy my Raiders finished the season. It was tragically beautiful, the Raiders season this year. We started with hopes of a Gardner Minshew renaissance. We thought Antonio Pierce might have lightning in a bottle because he was a former player. He took over from the interim head coach role. We thought Vegas, somehow Vegas would be a thing. It didn't happen this year. On the plus side, I thought Antonio Pierce learned a lot this year. Tom Brady is now a minority owner of the team. And Vegas can be a great city for football. Need to figure out the quarterback. That was the end of the regular season, everybody. Week 18, all 18 weeks in the books. And now the second season is starting. Who do you got? Who do you got? If your team is not in, who are you rooting for? If your team is in, how optimistic are you? It's time to refresh because there are more games to come and they all mean something. For myself, Patrick Ramirez, this was the Sunday Night Talk for Week 18. The playoffs are coming. YouTube Live next week. Be there. Have a good night.